I have a creepy story to tell that still messes with me years later. Back when I was a kid, my family and I lived in a pretty old house in Tennessee. The house was built in the 1920s, I believe. The house was kinda shaped in a square. Think of a racetrack that you can go around. Anyways, my sister and my bedroom door was in the living room, and the hallway was to the left. I used to have recurring nightmares and sleep paralysis of a tall man with a hat coming down the hallway to my bedroom door, and I would always wake up before he came in my room. Textbook sleep paralysis story. During summer, my mom would leave me and my 3 siblings home alone while she worked. She would come home tired, and since she had a lot of kids, she didn't like us to immediately stampede her when she arrives home. So anyways, one day we were all chilling in the living room, watching TV while our mom was at work, just doing the usual. We heard our mom get home from work early that day, and we were happy. We heard the back door open, and she came in talking to her friend on her Bluetooth. She always wore these black leather boots, and we heard them clunking on the floor while she walked and talked towards us. When she was finally almost to the living room, she was at the end of the hallway where I told you guys earlier where I used to see the shadow man in my dreams. Guess what? When we got up to greet her in that spot, she wasn't there. We were all stunned. My sister called her, and you guessed it, she was still at work. I didn't tell my brother about the shadow man before, but when I did, he said he saw him too in the bathroom, which was in that same hallway. I can draw pics of the layout of the house if you guys want. My mom said she used to hear my little brother calling her name when he wasn't home. I hated that house. Black mist in my room. I've lived in a number of houses, and just last night I saw it for the second time. I have no idea what it is. Around 4 or 5 years ago, I lived in a house built in the 1920s, and there was one night I was sleeping in the basement that I woke up. I've always had difficulty sleeping at night, and consistently woke up between 1 and 4 a.m. It was an issue I had from ages 8 to 16. I woke up, and there was this black mist in the corner of my room. I wasn't scared, it just felt like it was there. It was thick enough that I couldn't see through it. After a moment, I shined a flashlight on it with my phone, then turned the light off. It was gone. Fast forward to now. I just got back home from a 12-day trip. My family moved, so our current home was constructed in the past 10 years. I woke up in the middle of the night. I'm 20 now, so it's been years since I've done that, and looked to my left. There was a black mist right beside my bed, provably around 4 to 5 feet in height. I wasn't scared, I just turned back over and said, I'm safe. And something else that I can't recall right now. I saw a flying lady when I was 9. I live in the Philippines. Both my parents grew up in pretty traditional families in the countryside, but I was raised in the city. When I was 9, our town wasn't well developed, and the population was really small. There was only one working streetlight on the street to our neighborhood. One night, we went out to eat, and on our way home while walking, I saw a flying lady on a broom fly past the moon. I never told anyone. It was pretty clear. I'm not lying. Too scared to go back to bed. My fiancé and I just revealed to each other that we've been having slightly paranormal feelings in one part of our kitchen. He has felt someone walk past him, and I've heard the dog bells on the door ringing. When I go to let my dogs outside, there is nobody by the door, and the pups are asleep in another part of the house. 30 minutes ago, I was laying in bed and my fiancé was in the den, and we heard a big crash in the kitchen. We run in and find that an entire wall of pictures has fallen. Those pictures have been hanging for a year, and they were slightly staggered, so I don't know how they could all fall like that. The Black-Eyed Man. Hey, so this is my first post here. I have carried this story with me for over 15 years, and always wanted to share it with others who may have had a similar experience. I first saw this creature when I was 10, but I have ample reason to believe he has been around far longer. First off, I had a really troubled upbringing, with my first abuser being my father. Mainly borderline sadistic beatings/punishments, but the worst was being locked in the house all the time except for school. My father usually stayed in the living room, which is where I first saw the man sitting on the couch one night when sneaking out to the bathroom when I was around 10 years old. He was fairly tall, a bit thin, wearing a black suit, with neatly styled black hair, and almost non-existently thin eyebrows. The most disturbing part were his eyes, which were totally black, almost void-like. As I kept looking at him, his face started shifting into something that just looked dead. This was happening extremely fast, desiccating and refreshing several times in seconds. I just ran into the bathroom after this. This kept happening for years after this, and the man never seemed to notice me. After a while, my father grew even crazier and locked himself almost permanently in what used to be my room. Shortly after I turned 13, I saw the man in broad daylight for the first time. Time seemed odd and slowed down in that moment. And for the first time, the man saw me, looked me straight in the eyes, got up, and well, for lack of a better word, sort of phased toward me, reaching out for my hand. His lips were moving, but I could not hear what he was saying. He disappeared immediately before touching me. No one else saw anything, except me freezing up and looking terrified. My father left us a few days after this, and I never saw him again. My mother then had to work overseas to make more money to support us, so I had to live with my grandfather. Back then, I never thought it would all get so much worse. Well, this has already turned out to be a really long story, but it is far from over. Please let me know your opinions, and if you would like to read the second half. Also feel free to ask any questions, and I will answer them best I can. All I will reveal for now is that both my father and grandfather are no longer alive, and the circumstances of their deaths were odd, to say the least. My grandfather's paranormal experience he swears by. When my grandfather was young, he helped his father with his line of work. He often worked in the woods, whether it be helping cut down trees or gather wood. This particular day they went to this secluded town. When they got there, my grandfather wanted to go explore the woods while his father worked. He was warned to not wander off too deep into these woods because they're known to be dangerous. However, that's what he did. He ended up getting really lost because he wandered off too far in, and he stumbled upon a body of water. Now this is where it gets weird. When he told me what occurred, I could see the absolute fear in his eyes. He told me a creature, one that was tall, dark, walked out of the swamp. It resembled a woman and had very long hair covering much of her distorted face. She also had a very dark complexion. It walked out of the swamp and gripped his neck and started to choke him. Then it started to drag him into the water and drown him. He was freaking out and begging it to let him go. Eventually it did. By the time it let him go, he was hysterical, crying and screaming. It was also nearing dark, and somehow his father found him, but was confused why his son was wet. When they went back to the town, he explained to the people who were working with his father what occurred, and they said that they know of that creature. A lot of people end up wandering far into those woods and dying. They die because that thing drowns them, and my grandfather was very lucky he was spared. Now I know this story might be difficult to believe, but that's fine. I believe it because the look in my grandfather's eyes, you could see the fear. He's a very honest man as well, never lying. This all occurred in Morocco, back in the 60s, in the north of the country.